2021. And this is a work session for the School City of East Chicago. Can we please have a roll call? Trustee Williams.
Yes, Trustee Rodriguez,
Present.
Trustee Gomez,
Present.
Trustee Smith,
Present.
Chairman Hernandez Orange.
Present. Can we please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? This work session is basically to discuss the budget, and Superintendent Wright would start from now.
Yes, we have a presentation by Mr. Steve Dalton and Ms. Leila Simmons. They're going to present on our budget.
Good evening, board members. Since this is a work session, I want to encourage you to cut me off when you get sick of hearing me talk in maybe too high a level terms. I will almost always have to then take the details to Leila because she's the one that's in the books every day. But I know sometimes you get sick of just seeing the high level and you want to talk about the getting down in the weeds of the specifics. But I do need to start there because I think it helps paint our picture. Let's start with talking about last year. Calendar year 2020, I say calendar year specifically because it's the state looks at your budget as a calendar year, even though you think of it as a school year. The calendar year, the two large funds, the education fund and the operations fund, broke out this way. There was revenue in the education fund of just over $30 million. As you know, that is almost entirely the basic grant and the supporting grants that come from the state per student. The expenditures in the education fund were $27.7 million, almost entirely teacher salaries because that's what you need to be paying out of your education fund. And there was also a $3 million transfer from the education fund to the operations fund, which is allowed and actually encouraged by the state so that the operations fund doesn't continue to dig a deficit. That meant that last year, good news, COVID year, you added to the bottom line. We don't really make profits in the government world, but you added to the bottom line $2.4 million in reserves in this fund. That's good. There's nothing wrong with having reserves because we can get ready for our next rainy day or our next pandemic. Our cash reserves then at the end of 2020 were $11.3 million. You saw that on those cash flows that we looked at last week in a little bit more detail. That was the beginning balance for 2021 in the education fund. The operations fund is a little bit weaker, as you know. The operations fund brings in property taxes of just over $8.8 million. Some other fees that flow into the property, besides the property taxes, into the operations fund, and that $3 million transfer that came over from the education fund for a grand total of $12.4 million that flowed into the operations fund last year. It spent just a little bit more than that. I don't know how. The truth of the matter is expenses were down last year. They were down below budget, which is great news. It's probably because we weren't open, and so some expenses just didn't occur because the buildings weren't open. So we only had $12.6 million in expenditures, but even at that, we lost money. We lost very little, but we lost some money, $180,000 of reduced reserves in the operations fund. The end of the year, $7.3 million was our reserve. So the good news is if you add that 11 and that 7, you ended the year with 2020 with your two big funds having $18 million. And if we stopped there, we'd all be happy. Except that as we look forward, as we talked about last week, we start to see the beginning of greater deficits. And we start to see the education fund having a harder and harder time supporting the operations fund. So let's look at this year. Education fund, we project $28.5 million in revenues. This is down a little bit, and I think it's probably, correct me if I'm wrong, because we're down a little bit in students. So we get paid per student. Our basic grant and our grants flowing to us are less than they were last year. The approved budget is $26.6 million. That's the budget you approved last summer, leaving $1.8 million available if we wanted to stay structurally balanced to transfer to the operations fund. If we take that $1.8 million that gets transferred then to the operations fund and we add it to roughly $9 million in tax revenues, we don't have enough in the operations fund coming in to support a $14.6 million operations budget. This has been a problem. It didn't start this year. It didn't start last year. It started a couple of years ago, in that there isn't enough property taxes flowing in to support the expenses that have to live in the operations fund. Spending is running a little less than we anticipated, so I'm taking that into account in the cash flows, but we would expect a deficit or spending more money than we bring in of $2.8 million in 2021. We had 7 million, so we can do this a couple more times, but we all know that if we do it through 2023, we'll be out of cash. And so we need to at least be thinking ahead about the fact that the next couple of years, we needed some solutions to help us get ready for running lower and lower and lower on cash reserves. I thought this might be helpful as you get ready to maybe ask some questions of Leela about specifics. I don't know if you've thought of it this way before, but I had to ask myself the question, what is payroll? Because we know payroll is the lion's share of our expense. And so generally, I rounded these numbers. Teachers are $18.6 million of your spending. Non-union, non-certified, 3.8 million. Admin, 3 million. Maintenance, 2.5. Paras, 1.5. Clerical, 800,000. The Teamsters, 600,000. And bus drivers, 500,000. I'm going to pause there because that may be a point where somebody wants to ask a follow-up, and I don't want to go racing by it or gloss by it. Anybody have a question about this specific summary? Is anybody surprised by any of those numbers? No. Okay. It's good. I want to talk a little bit about debt. I think there was some questions Joelle asked about our outstanding debt. We have 3.4 million left outstanding on the general obligation 2019. When I say outstanding, I mean that's how much we owe the bondholders. I don't mean that's how much sitting in our bond proceeds account that Leela may still be spending on capital projects. So $3.4 million still outstanding to be paid to the bondholders, $3 million to the 2018 bondholders, $8.6 million to the bonds that you refinanced last year, the building court bonds. Leela, remind me on the state disaster loan, we sent them the unspent money, or we are going to? Okay, so you'll recall when there was the tragedy with Kerry Gosh, and we had to move all those students and within a couple of weeks to the new building that's now called Kerry Gosh, that the state made a loan to the school system for that move. But they restricted those dollars to just being able to be used for that move. We didn't need them all. We couldn't find other ways to use the dollars at the new Kerry Gosh or for the move or moving the kids over there. So instead of just letting those dollars sit and we get no interest on them while we're paying the state interest, we're returning the unused portion to the state so that we can pay them less in interest on the outstanding amount. And then in response perhaps to Joelle's question last week, we would propose issuing something in 2022 or 2023, not because right now you need capital project money, but because we have a commitment to maintaining the property tax rate at its current level. And so that would free you up for once the COVID CARES money flows through the system, that next round in 2022 and 23 of capital needs could be taken care of by some proposed bond issue at that time. I'll show you a chart that sometimes I think maybe a little small to see, I'm sorry, but this chart is the chart that shows us our outstanding debt service payments by year, by bond. The years are on the left and the bonds are on the top. And we total those across to come up with our tax rate. And you'll see that if we, as we suggest, we issue debt in 2022, we would still stay very level on our tax rate until 2026-ish. When even more bonds flow off the system and we would have to have this conversation again. You don't have to issue debt. I'm not telling you have to, but that would be the option if you wanted to maintain the same tax rate. Just a comment, this is my last slide, so I didn't want to overwhelm you guys with slides tonight, but just a comment on the budget timeline. I'd recommend that in May, we update the first quarter financials to you as a board so that you can see every line item of the budget you approved last year in comparison to what was spent in the first quarter by each line item. That will help us then begin to build the 2022 budget because actual numbers are valuable in that process. We'll get the property taxes in June. My guess would be that in July, the proposed 2022 budget will be brought to you by the administration for some type of workshop in July where you can get down into the nitty gritty of every one of those line items, every one of those employees, every one of those buildings, with a public hearing on the budget and the capital plan in August, and an adoption hearing either at the end of August or the beginning of September for the budget, our annual transfer resolution that says that we're allowed to take money from the education fund and put it in the operations fund, and the capital plan. So that's the plan in theory for your timeline for the next couple months. Questions on any of that? And if not on any of that, how do you want to dig in? What do you want to know more about?
In regards to, you do not have any of that, the COVID funding that's coming through, none of the federal grant funding that's coming through, is totally separate.
Totally separate.
And it will never kind of interact with each other in a sense.
That's correct. The federal government requires that those dollars be put in a totally separate fund and that those dollars be spent out of that totally separate fund. The only time there would be quote unquote interaction would be if those dollars were approved by you to be transferred to support the education or the operations fund in an eligible expense. And that may not happen very often, to tell you the truth. We hear there may be a revenue loss opportunity in the new batch of money that was approved by Congress. And if that's the case, we may have to do some calculations as to revenues that we lost comparing 2019 to 2020 because of the pandemic. And then those dollars might be able to be taken from the federal grant fund and transferred towards the fund that lost money. But that would be the only situation where I could see interaction.
But then for us as a budget timeline, then we would have to include that into our budget timeline, none of that.
I think the way to look at it is the budget timeline requires the property tax and the state big grant fund be approved and within that schedule. Grants, because they come and go, you might get Title I one time and Title II another time, and a state grant for this and a corrections grant for that or whatever. Grants can happen any time of year and they can be brought to you for approval at any time because they're not property tax, income tax, or state direct aid related. So we may not even know all the answers by this timeline to the new batch of money.
Okay. My second question is, with the House Bill 1005, I think that's what it is. And if I correctly am saying this, I saw that the monies for students would go up some for us. It would go up per student.
2%, I believe it is.
So, and I know you gave us these wonderful, beautiful papers last week. That's foreseen future at the amount that we are now.
Yeah, I use the level number because I don't know that those negotiations were anywhere close to done when I was running those numbers, and I'm not positive they're totally done yet.
Yeah, no, okay. I was just wondering, just to make sure.
I have heard 1%, I've heard 1.5%, I've heard 2%. Let's hope it's 2%.
Yeah, I heard it was 2% this year and 1% the following year.
Okay.
That was all.
Obviously, adding students is one of our greatest ways to add revenue to the education fund. So as we become the school of choice, we add students, that helps us tremendously. Other questions on getting into the nitty gritty? I'm glad to try, and then I obviously am glad to pawn off on Leela too. Nope. All right. I'm good.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the CARES Act and the ESSER Act. As you all may have read in the paper, we have some funds for the CARES Act, which was awarded in 2020 of March. We received approximately $2.7 million. And for the ESSER 2, we received $12 million and some change. Okay, so ESSER 2 is a little bit different from The CARES Act, we had to give a equitable share to our non-pubs, which means that, what that really means is that we have to give money to the non-public schools, the charter schools, the Catholic schools, things of that sort. That's for the CARES Act. Whereas the ESSER is non-equitable, which means that we do not have to give money to the non-pubs and the charter schools. Now, each one of these funds are being utilized for different needs. What I will tell you about the ESSER is that at least 20% of the ESSER, which is the $12 million, has to be used on learning loss. That's a minimum of 20% that has to be used on learning loss. I gave you all at the front, I gave you all a sheet that showed the things that the allowable uses that we can spend the ESSER on. Board, did you get those? They were up front. Oh, this is all. Oh, okay. No, it was. Okay, so we'll make sure we get you all copies. So for the ESSER 2, it prevents the opportunity not only to address learning loss, but to also think innovatively around ways schools will need to meet the needs of our schools moving forward. So once again, of the $12 million, 20% of it has to be used for combating the learning loss. So we're using our ESSER and our CARES Act for after-school tutoring, which we started after-school tutoring last Tuesday. We will also use the CARES Act and the ESSER Act funds for summer school, robust summer school. I kind of explained that, I believe, at the last board meeting. Summer school would take place from June 7th until July 16th. Once again, summer school will be targeted. The innovation team is working on a plan to make it both fun and educational. Which is all tentative now, but I'll give you the more detailed plans probably in the next 3 weeks. But we're not going to call it summer school because we want a innovative name as opposed to summer school. We don't want it to be a negative connotation. Our summer school will address our all kids. It will not only be for students who are behind. It will be for as an enrichment as well. We're also using the CARES Act and some of our ESSER funds on Saturday school. In the fall, we're going to offer Saturday school, and it's going to be located at each of the buildings for the entire year, from August until May. So we're going to have a Saturday school. We're going to provide lunch. We're going to provide bus transportation. And we're going to also make it innovative and interacting for our students. A large chunk of our money will be spent on technology. It was a board meeting August 16th. I went back to make sure that I was right on my date. But August 16th, I stated that we had a vision of one-to-one. Every student in our district will have a laptop or iPad, a one-to-one, because as we know, paper and pencil and worksheets are passé. So our kids will have technology. So we have been working on our technology proposal. So I'm going to ask Mr. George Antaveras to come up and present our technology plan.
Okay, so just so you're aware, all the Chromebooks, all the devices that the kids are using today will be going out of warranty during the summer. So all the iPads, all the Chromebooks that we have currently in district will be going out of warranty. So those were bought 3 years ago. So these are the plans that the group came up with as far as going forward for the next 4 years. Yeah, it's the booklet, I believe. Okay, so we came up with 4 plans. The first plan, basically, it's a single one-to-one device per student. The second plan was, I know Ms. Wright had a vision of having a 2-to-1, which is feasible. But this plan here, through all the numbers that we're thinking, this will be 2-to-1, 2 devices as far as 2 iPads, 2 Chromebooks per student. That's from pre-K all the way through 12th grade. So in Plan B, this plan, after going through all the numbers, is not feasible because we do not have enough computer cards at the high school to service both devices at school and devices at home. So there's a Plan C that we came up with that said that you'll still have 2 devices per student, including computer cards at the high school. And then, that's where you have your prices there at the end. The last plan, Plan D, kind of takes away from the 2-to-1 and makes it into more of a hybrid plan, where pre-K through 6th grade will have 2 devices, one at home, one at school. And from 7th through 12th grade, which is your secondary schools, will have only 1 device, which they will bring home, take to school, and back and forth. So to the conclusion of that, the team came up, since the Plan D is pretty much the most affordable one to kind of get where we want to be. So that's what we're recommending as Plan D for more of a hybrid approach.
And also, so the question will always come up, what happens with those 7th graders through 12th graders that will leave their Chromebooks at home? So we're going to make sure that we have extras in the library and students can go check them out. So our students will not show up. Our students will always have access to some form of technology in school, because not having a Chromebook is equivalent to not having a pencil. And we want to make sure that our kids are in school ready and prepared to learn, and not having technology is a non-negotiable for us.
Also, with the devices that we're taking home, we're going to be purchasing, or hopefully purchasing, some device totes. Not only are these devices, or these totes, instead of being in the royal blue, they're going to be navy blue with our school logo. So every student, again, from pre-K through 12, that are going to be taking a device home, will be having a secure tote for them to take their device home.
It looks like, so this is one of the, so technically, the student will not even have to take it out of this place. You don't have to worry about it being damaged.
So again, they will be in the school colors.
Can we interrupt any questions?
Sure.
I don't want to play devil's advocate. Well, I want to play devil's advocate.
Sure.
I think we tried this rollout once before with the
Correct.
Apple MacBooks, and all the kids had them. I believe that at some point in time, we spent more dollars in our district than anything trying to locate where they were either stolen, lost.
Sure. So
What have we
what do we learn?
What have we learned from that
Sure.
on this situation?
The Mac rollout, the MacBook rollout, is a device. It's about $1,200. These Chromebooks are no more than $250. $250. So it's apples and oranges. MacBook Pros are high end, something that at the time was a showstopper, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where I remember seeing kids in the hallways thinking they were, with headphones, and it's their iTunes, because that's what it was. It's a Mac OS. These Chromebooks, all they do is one thing, and that's web browsing. So all our student apps, all our testing apps, all work on that one Chrome device, which again is $250. Okay. So the cost factor from one to the other, it's not a showstopper.
Right.
So
So
within
there's no
2
value
years,
to it on the street as if the MacBooks were.
Yes, and once someone found out how much they cost, again, she'll stop. So here, the Chromebooks are a lot more affordable.
So one thing that we are putting in place with these Chromebooks is that we do have the sign out, that the parents have to sign out saying that if they're not returned, they do owe us $250, and we will proceed that all the way to the legal till we get the money back. Also, we're putting in place technology fees this year, where we're gonna be charging so much per semester to make sure that we can recoup the money if the the Chromebook is lost, or we can recoup the money if we have to do any, repairs to it. So we have things in place that we will not take the loss that the district took with the MacBooks.
Okay. Thank you.
And also, we can use textbook rental as for fees as well, because textbooks are considered use of anything. Yeah, textbooks are considered use of Chromebooks as well, so we can use textbook rental fees as well.
I have a couple questions.
Sure.
Yes, a couple. The 1,344,000, or that amount, that's including the replacement, or, so the replacements and or the extras, so anything extra, because, we, for the most part, children break and,
Sure, so if you go down to Plan D, if you go towards the end of the booklet,
oh, okay.
so Plan D here, it kind of gives you a breakdown of where the numbers are and the money wise. So we average about 300 students per grade level, maybe 250, 280, depending on the grade level. So we kind of just round it up, like you said, to get the extras for the just in case, or the extras in the library. So pretty much we are looking at that. Now with these 4-year warranties, they are 1 year insured every year for a damaged product. So if a student is able, I don't know, drops it, cracks the screen, whatever, the warranty within those devices, you can fix it once a year. So the plan is for the student to have a device, their first year get a device, that device stays with them for 4 years. That same device. Now, if you take care of your Chromebook, then you're gonna have a great Chromebook. If you don't take care of it, you're gonna get the same one next year. So that's kind of, in a way, you're kind of giving them some responsibility, some way for them to take care of their own stuff.
And technically, I mean, that's how now colleges, basically, that's college, what they do.
And you know what, it's normalizing throughout the districts where, it's just part of what they have to do. Some kind of ownership.
The Google Chrome, it's already in there, I saw the license, so and that is, the Google Chrome,
Yes, the Google Chrome OS, the license for that is 6 years. So our warranty only goes up to 4, but we can still use the Chromebook for another 2 years.
and that's all, I know how we used to use the Google Chrome, you're able to, so if I don't bring my device to school, I'm able to go into a different device, print out whatever I need to, so forth and so on, correct?
It's all cloud-based.
Are we getting USBs just in case for students?
Everything's cloud-based. You can save everything on your network drive or your Google drive.
Perfect. I know we've probably had conversations multiple times about this. We're buying these new Chromebooks. We're now going to have it where they're going to have to pay a technology fee. At the end of the 4 years, will that student keep these?
That's a very good question. We're working on that. The feasibility is probably, because again, these devices are $250, $300 within 2 or 3 years. The value of them goes down just like anything else in technology. There's a newer version of something. So then, these devices, just like a car, they'll start losing their value. So yeah, we might be, I know other school districts, sell their, once they graduate, they sell it for $1 or something like that. So we're looking at, at those avenues also.
And just to see, I know like the difference between the younger kids, that obviously they'll have a longer time, like how to look for them, where the pre-K to 6 with the
So the pre-K and K are still getting iPads.
Right.
That's our only, I guess, iOS devices that we have. And it's because of the touchscreen capability at that. Chromebooks Chromebooks have touchscreen capabilities, but not like iPads. iPads are just top notch. These are like the MacBooks that we talked about earlier.
Right. Right.
So for little kids like that, for students at that stage of their lives, the touchscreen or the iPad is a lot better, and the apps are a lot better for that stage.
So then are you guys just gonna come back with a plan to further in detail of what would happen at the end of?
Oh, yes, definitely. Yeah, we're working on it. We're collaborating with other school districts on see what they do and, trying to use best practice. So, we found out a lot since we were not a one-on-one school. We found out all the bad stuff that happened in other school districts, so we're trying to learn from those mistakes, so we won't repeat them here.
And then the devices, are they gonna have tracking system?
They don't have any low jack or anything like that. No, that's something that the MacBooks at that time, and it was a very, very expensive software product for us to track those. But again, $250 to track them. When we can see when they're using them, we can shut down the actual Chromebook if it's missing, so we can do that. But as far as location, that's just another product that we just don't see about.
I just have one comment.
Sure.
I know you're still working on the plan, but when you do decide what the disposition plan is for the iPads at the end of their useful life, there just needs to be a depreciation schedule or a resolution for the board. I know we was going to meet for state board, something adopted by the board of elections or the school property. So whatever it is, just bring us to a standalone resolution for just the disposition.
So I just want to ask the audience if you had any comments on your thoughts on Plan A, B, C, D. If you had any thoughts on that? Go ahead. You want to borrow mine? You gonna give it back, right?
While she does that, hey, George, I do have a question.
Sure.
And to kind of piggyback what Attorney Harris stated as well. These iPads will, or I'm not iPads, but these Chromebooks would have tags, correct?
Correct.
I think what inventory is very important as well. So
Exactly.
when it comes to us for disposition, we'll be looking for those tag numbers of what's going to be disposed of. So,
Yes, every asset, every device has a unique service tag number, and that's the number or the tag number we're going to be using for the students to check in and check out. We're kind of using it like a book kind of reference where they check in and check out like in the library. So that's going to be our inventory control.
thank you.
I do have another question.
Sure.
The Chromebooks, are they gonna be Wi-Fi compatible? I mean, so are they gonna have Wi-Fi in the Chromebook itself or not?
On the Chromebook itself?
Yeah.
No, we're still going to be using the hot.
So and then, does that mean that with this recommendation, we'll also have to include the hotspots? How's that
Yeah,
gonna work?
the hotspots are, this is my assumption here is through the care or,
And then this is gonna be paid for through what?
Okay, yes.
So then we will be seeing another presentation for both, or are you just gonna give us an amount? Mhm. 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 That's all, yeah.
Oh,
basically.
absolutely,
But
absolutely.
we need additional hotspots.
Yes,
And the reason why, I think the question
yes.
is, would this change this bottom line number if we buy additional hotspots along with these Chromebooks? Or are you doing those separate?
Separate, yes,
Okay,
yes.
all right.
And
Thank you.
did we look into
the
doing
hotspots are free. What you're paying for is the
the
service.
survey? Right.
So,
Did we look into those Chromebooks that do have the Wi-Fi?
yes, that was an option. It wasn't, since it's new, I don't want to say new technology, but it's new that just came out. So it's, the cost factor is a lot more. So it's just something we didn't look at. But yeah, it just came out, I believe, 2 months ago.
And then just the T-Mobile Wi-Fi, that's just for one Chromebook one,
Three
Three.
devices.
Three devices.
per hotspot.
and then does it have like a certain, like, what's it called? You can only get so much data,
Unlimited.
unlimited. Oh,
Yes, go ahead, Ms. Randall. Wow.
We have the same filtering that we have in the schools, and same filtering we have here locally goes with the device, at home, regardless if they're on whatever internet they're on. It's still, the filter is on the device, not on the internet.
Mhm.
Yes, sir.
So I just want to be clear that iPads, Chromebooks, and hotspots are equivalent to having paper and pencil for our students. And we're going to make sure that every one of our students will have the technology and the internet that they need, because we're moving to more of a technological curriculum and instruction. So we have to make sure that technology and hotspots are there. Homework will be completed on a Chromebook. So teachers can assign homework online, and the online resource will grade the homework, send a report to the teachers, so we don't have to worry about kids saying that they lost their homework. Teachers won't have to complain about all the homework assignments that they have to grade. So we're moving more to that technological curriculum. So once again, Chromebooks and hotspots are equivalent to paper and pencil.
That's my question. This right here is for the 2020 school year, so I'm assuming because we're gonna do like a big amount and we have a CARES Act fund, how are we going to,
After 4 years?
I get, yeah, did we already plan it out? No, maybe.
No, this plan's for 4 years, or from here to the fourth year.
So, but I'm saying, so every year a new group comes in, or,
Right, so the thought process is that the senior class, since they haven't finished that warranty, will get recycled into, it goes back to the beginning. So you're a student, if you're a freshman, right, you're gonna have it throughout your whole high school career.
right,
So the sophomore, juniors, and seniors now, they're gonna be recycled, they're still gonna be put back into the system. Because they're still under warranty, it's still fixed.
no, yeah,
So we don't have to buy any more for 4 years.
for 4 years, but then that's what I'm saying, so,
After the fourth year,
yeah, how do we continue that after the 4 years? Or is just, cause I don't want it to be that, oh, cause that's what happened to that one group that had the max. You had this group that we started going towards technology-based systems, and teachers were starting to learn how to do the technology, and then after we realized it was too expensive to replace, then it was the next set of students that kind of fell by the wayside, and then we reverted back to previous, and then that's what I'm saying, how can we sustain, or have we thought of how we're gonna sustain ongoing? Yep.
brainstorming.
Mhm.
But yeah, but you're right. In 4 years, I mean, it's kind of hard to predict. Any other questions? Sure. Yeah, well, what it is, the reason we had HPs is last year with the COVID, everyone was buying Chromebooks. Everybody. So we're a Dell shop here in the school district. We're the technology department has Dell certified technicians that service Dell, only Dell. But since COVID hit and everyone was so reliant on, other foreign countries as far as getting our equipment, Dell was behind, I guess, so behind in their orders, they couldn't ship us any more Dell Chromebooks. So we had to find other vendors to just provide us with equipment now that we needed, for this last COVID year. So we're still using those HPs in the classroom, but those are not the ones that are going to be taken home to the school or to the kids. So those HPs that we bought last year are going to be used in-house. We're still going to be using those. I mean, a Chromebook's a Chromebook. It's almost like tennis shoes, Converse, Nike, they're still shoes. HPs and Dell, they're just two different companies doing the same thing. But we're a Dell shop here in the school.
Ms. Mahone? Day in the life of the Chromebook? Okay, so day in the life of Chromebook, okay? So you show up for school. The teacher can give you an assignment. As soon as you get in school to start working on your assignment, she can tell you to go to one of your portals. You can go to Canvas, you can use Canvas, or you can use iReady, or you can use a new resource that we're going to introduce, and she can assign an assignment for a kid, and she can tell the kid to start working on an assignment. This is in the classroom. Okay, so we would call those like bell ringers or entry tickets, just to get the kids in, get them engaged while the kids may be eating breakfast or teacher may be taking attendance. Then once the teacher gets ready to provide instruction, whether that instruction, I'm talking in elementary school, whether that instruction is reading, math, social studies, they can still use this Chromebook if they need to, or they can just do direct instruction, or we're going to purchase interactive boards, which are like Promethean boards, and the kids can get that whole group instruction. When a teacher then decides that, okay, now it's time for small group instruction, she can either do it on the Chromebook with one of our online resources that we're going to work on, or it can be in person. She can give an assignment on the computer and have the kids work in small groups, and she can give them a certain time period to work on an assignment. Then when they start doing because our instructional framework is I do, we do, they do, or whichever one. And then she can also use this if she needs to. So the teacher, the kid will be using this Chromebook throughout the day, because our resources will be uploaded into this Chromebook. With the Chromebooks? Yes. We're talking about all in-person learning. Yes. 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 Same thing. Absolutely. 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 And you can then also engage the kids even using the Chromebook. So just because the teacher's engaging with the kid doesn't mean that the Chromebook has to be closed. They can say, okay, well, we're working on this problem, or we're working on this, so they can engage those kids even with the Chromebook. So it's not an either or, it can be both, or it could be either or. It's just, we're going to use these as a tool, not to replace a teacher. It's going to be used as a tool. So the importance of the technology is as a resource. The teacher is still the teacher. This is just another tool. It doesn't replace the teacher. Go ahead, Ms. Goods. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I do have,
This is the second year. Yes. I think we're very successful with Canvas. You said, for example, do you mean usage? We can generate. The engagement. However, Canvas does have the capability where teachers can go in and assign quizzes, they can assign work, they can assign discussions. A teacher can go in and post a discussion and tell the kids that they have to answer this discussion in Canvas. The teacher can then go back and look at the discussion. So, but if we're using it as for grades, the teacher has to put the quizzes or the graded assignment into Canvas. And then what happens is, whatever we put into Canvas, it reads over into Skyward, which is our student learning center. So whatever we put into Canvas, if whatever grades we put, it transfers over to Skyward. But the grades do not just solely sit in Canvas. They read each other.
So I have to say, knowing students who are in, and more so just in the high school level, my concern was the interaction, because it is a concern, because especially, I have special needs. How do they? So,
Yes.
how do you talk to people? So,
No, 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 no. No, it's a
and that's why I
tool.
wanted to address it, because that's how I felt. The
It's a
same way you
tool.
did.
It's a tool to get, it's a tool. Yes. All the time.
So,
I think you two know. Okay. Would you explain it to her from a Miss Good?
no, but I'm trying. So I just want to say, from what is being so okay, I know, like, when a child's in the classroom, and then, you used to have kids who are virtual still. So how can they get the interaction with their classmates if they're virtual? So the class is able to see on their computers their classmate. The classmate's still able to raise their hand. The teacher's still able to call on that person. And I know when they have to work in groups, like, they break out in their own group and go to, one section of the classroom along with that person who's online, and they're able to have that interaction. Also with the special needs, like when you have to break to do your specials, or if you have to break to do to go into different classes, like, that continues to happen. You still take, if you're in virtual and you take that the aid that goes with you to that special or whatever, or if they're in classroom, then your aid, let's say for some reason your aid had to be at home, you still see them on virtual. You're still able to make the interaction. I was 1,000%. I hate when kids are like this all day on the game, and you need to have conversations, and I'm able to see that there's actually some interaction going on with students, and I'm surprised that it's just a whole new trend of education and learning that's actually happening. And I mean, if you're in college, honestly, it's the same way. That's why so many colleges are now going to virtual learning also, and that's state schools, and you could choose vice versa. So I think we're following the pattern of what higher education are doing in the long run. So with parents.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. This is this this is just a tool. This is just it's a resource. Yes. Yes. So, Ms. Mahone, I know you all hear me say this all the time, but this is part of our culture. Um, Building principals are required to do a minimum of 3 walkthroughs per week. That's every administrator in the building. So if we have a teacher that is just telling the kids, log in and that's it, that building principal will be aware of that. And absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. Yeah, yeah. So once again, this is not to replace the teacher. This is just another resource to help facilitate learning because we have to realize our kids are techies. And so paper and pencil again, and giving kids paper and pencil for 6 or 7 hours, that's passe. That's back in the 19, yes, yes. Oh, no, no. Absolutely. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. No, it doesn't. Yes.
And, but with that being said too, because of that we're doing so much on computer, I think it's our job to come up with innovative ideas of things to do after school, more programming where there could be interaction, maybe bring in more of the, I should say, the arts, so that there could be more interaction that way. Your sports, it's more interaction and extracurricular, after school programming,
PCAs.
clubs. I think
Yes.
that is where we're definitely gonna have to try to have the children do more interaction. And I haven't seen our arts program in a long time. If we start them off at a younger age to be interactive in the arts, that could definitely help with continued socialization and interaction, because we are going to be more in a computer. So that's my opinion.
Go ahead, Ms. Malone. Yeah, we're gonna do training. Right. Yes. 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 Right. And also last year, right when COVID hit, we did have a PD for parents to learn Canvas. But we'll do it again. We'll make sure we do some rounds of different schedules to meet all the parents' needs. We also had the IT helpline, right, George, that all the parents had to do was go to the IT helpline, and it walk them through how to get onto Canvas, how to log into Canvas. So, but we'll make sure that we do that again.
Possible if you can have every school be part of that, for
Yeah.
example. Maybe have one night at McKinley, one night
Right.
at Harrison, so
The
forth.
social parent university, or satellite parent university. And I don't